On today's show, the Capitals fall in the shootout to the Buffalo Sabres, and Ryan Leonard is named the MVP at the World Junior Championships.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals as they fall in the shootout to the Buffalo Sabres. And I don't know what it is about Buffalo, as they are the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and the Capitals, well, they are the best team in the Eastern Conference. Why do the Capitals have such a hard time against the Buffalo Sabres? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I will talk about standout performances, as this was a loss for the Capitals in the shootout, but there were some good things to take away from this game. What were those things? I'll talk about that a little bit later, but there is also reasons for concern that things are going pretty well for the Capitals, but there are certain areas in certain questions that are being drawn into focus. What are those questions? And then in the final segment, Ryan Leonard was announced as the MVP at the World Junior Championships. But just to get it going here right off the bat, talking about the Capitals losing in the shootout, they pick up a point to the Buffalo Sabres. And like I said off the top, what is it about the Capitals playing the Sabres, and primarily in Buffalo? Why do they have such a hard time, as they took it to the Capitals right out of the gate, and the Capitals had to show pushback, and there was some lack of discipline. There was some, subpar net minding by Charlie Lindgren, that certain things are being drawn into focus, that the Capitals can rise to the occasion and pick up big wins against certain teams, primarily teams that are that much better to them, but they have a hard time playing to teams that are down from them. And to be clear here, and I talk about this, and if you are an everydayer of the show, you know I talk about how the Buffalo Sabres will be, in time, a team to be reckoned with. They have a lot of great young talent. They have a fan base that, despite they haven't been that great of a team for quite some time, they love that team, that I think that they will be a great team in years to come. And we saw evidence of that great team, that great play on the ice tonight. Now, you might say, well, why are they in last place in the Eastern Conference? Well, it's a young team and it's a work in progress. But the problem with the Buffalo Sabres, if you are a fan of them, is that they're going to be better next year. No scrub that. Next year. When will it be their year? That I don't know. But as far as the Capitals are concerned, they did demonstrate some of that pushback in this game, something that was lacking from their game in previous seasons, that they very well could have won this game. I mean, they made it to the shootout, and the Capitals started the shootout very well. It's just it fell apart. But the thing that needs to get cleaned up, of course, is the sloppy start. So let's dig into the game in particular. So the final score, it was a gripping game. One of those, I guess you could say, nail binder that ended in a heartbreaking shootout loss by a score of 4-3. Despite trailing late, the Capitals did showcase some resilience. There was some pushback to tie it up with that goal by Aliaksei Protas. But as we all know, shootouts can be brutal, as the Capitals are now 0-2 on the season in the shootout. What player are they missing right now in the shootout? Evgeny Kuznetsov. Don't really miss him anywhere else. I hate to say that, but the Capitals could have definitely used Kuzi in the shootout tonight. But standout players, let's shine a spotlight on some standout players. Jakob Chychrun continues to impress, picking up an assist and racking up 20 points in his last 20 games. That's the highest among the Capitals right now. So he is definitely making a case that, hey, I'm here, guys. I'm ready to be a Capital in the long term. Just tell me where I got to sign. That's what I got to imagine Jakob Chychrun's thinking anyway. I haven't heard it from him firsthand, but I know that he likes playing in Washington. I know that he has had great success playing here. That you got to think at the end of the day, it seems like a no-brainer. Get it done. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. As you know, it is going to be an expensive contract, but Jakob Chychrun is a big piece of the present, and I feel the future of this team. A great two-way defenseman, a good defender, a guy that has a good offensive flair. He checks all the boxes for what the Capitals are looking for on the blue line. And also Aliaksei Protas, he was huge in this game as well, scoring the game tying goal, making it 4 straight games with a goal for Aliaksei Protas. Again, his game has grown by leaps and bounds, and I wish I could draw lines to where it is and his improvement. And if I was going to summarize what I think I have seen improved, it is confidence. That's the biggest thing with him is confidence. He's also worked on his skating, and his shot looks that much better. And also surrounding himself with some great line mates as well. That is thanks in part to Spencer Carberry and also former GM Brian McClellan, that he is in a good position and excelling. As we know that Aliaksei Protas was the guy that came to camp a couple seasons ago, just at camp, no big plans. He'll go down to Hershey, played so well, pounded on that door saying, look at me, guys, I'm ready for my opportunity. And that is ultimately why he's played so well. Played good last season, but has definitely taken a step or two up from where he was last year. And Dylan Strome, there was some talk about there that the Capitals were getting off to this this slow stretch here. What was going on here? That players like Dylan Strome started the season very strong, but for the last while here, that some of those players that were key contributors have slowed up quite a bit. But Dylan Strome is definitely finding his stride again, who extended his point streak to 4 games. So a big night for Dylan Strome, the guy that is holding it down at the center position. He is, I'm not going to go ahead and say Nick Backstrom 2.0, but has a lot of the same qualities as Backstrom has. And Tom Wilson, without the bubble on his face, without the big aquarium, has been huge for the Capitals, putting up 2 goals over the Sabres. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, that is a mouthful of a name for the netminder for the Buffalo Sabres. Good netminder. Not, maybe a household name, but a name I'm familiar with, just following the NHL, and played pretty darn good for the Sabres tonight. Now, one on a power play and the other on from a rebound. So Tom Wilson doing some truly great things. And, with a rebound, being up in front, good things will happen. That puts him at 18 goals this season already. And you take a look at it, just take a look at the Capital statistics. It's quite glowing about all the players that are much better than they were at this point last year. So if he's at 18 goals right now, and there's still a substantial amount of hockey left to play this season, this is going to truly be, I'm going to go ahead and say maybe career numbers for a lot of different players on the Capitals. He's now on pace for 37. And his energy is what really helped propel the team, especially in the third period where the Capitals staged a comeback. Fell short. I mean, it made it to the playoffs. They tied her up. But ultimately, what has kept the Capitals in the position that they're in? The third period heroics. This is kind of what is the blueprint of this year's team. And I say this year's team because there's a lot of different players in the mix. And I'm talking primarily here about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Made a great play passing to John Carlson, who set up Protas perfectly for that beautiful redirection past Buffalo's goalie, Ukko Pekka Luukkonen. So just a great teamwork. Teamwork is what makes the dream work. I really hate that saying, but that was the case for the Capitals tonight. Is it was a supporting ensemble that really helped propel the Capitals. And you know what I like about this game? And some people say, "You, what do you like about this game, Dan? The Capitals lost the game." Is that they got behind, but they showed that pushback, and that is what speaks volumes about this team. And this is ultimately what is going to help this team in the playoffs because they are going to get behind. But what's different about this year's team versus last year's team? They have the answer or they have the pushback. Didn't get the result that they were looking for, but again, the shootout could go either way. That's what I love about this team. And John Carlson, we know what he means to this team, got involved in some altercations, or actually it was brought upon him, and Strome and Sandin had to step in there a bit there. But John Carlson had one heck of a night, had a massive career achievement with 2 assists, reaching 700 career points. That puts him in some elite company as the 31st defenseman in NHL history to reach that mark. A huge achievement for number 74. Let's hear it here. If you can safely clap where you're at now, really do that. John Carlson is deserving of it. A minute monster. Last season, playing 25 to 30 minutes a night. Doesn't put up generally quite as many minutes, but, minus John Carlson, this team's not going to be nearly as good, especially on the blue line. A bit of an unsung hero, just a guy that goes about and does his business, not real fancy, not real, showboaty, but John Carlson, absolutely huge for this team. Again, I'm not going to view this game as just something I want to sweep under the rug. This game demonstrated resiliency, pushback, tenacity, a lot of the things that I love about this year's Capitals team. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about reasons for concern. It wasn't all great. When I watch these games, I'm like, well, this is what I like. This is what I didn't like. What are some of the things that need to get cleaned up? I'll discuss straight ahead. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $100 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. So what do we know? That we are coming up on the playoffs, and some of the games you're more into, some of them you're not. I'm talking Commanders, Ravens, but say, it's a day that one of your teams isn't playing. If you want to have vested interest in all of the games, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on those games. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, reasons for concern. What has Dan concerned about the Capitals after their performance tonight? Well, there are a couple things in particular. The fact that the Capitals lost the game, it's going to happen. You're not going to win them all, but there are certain things that we can drill down a little bit more specifically about this team. So, however, taking a look at it, it wasn't all smooth sailing for the Capitals. There was that rocky start. Why was there a rocky start? That is one of the things that we hear all the time, is playing a 60-minute game. Well, the first 20 or so were a bit rough, struggling early on and giving up the first goal due to a screen on goaltender Charlie Lindgren. And if we're going to talk about things that need to get cleaned up, Dylan Strome, I sung his praises in the first segment, but a pivotal moment when Strome took a penalty, the ensuing power play for Buffalo saw Rasmus Sandin's fake shot open up a lane for Tage Thompson, who hammered home in a blistering 103, miles per hour. That's what I'm talking about. Tage Thompson, a player that if you're not familiar with, go ahead and look him up. Take a look at him. Quite stunning. Definitely figures to be a big part of the Buffalo Sabres' future. So, yet, even with those challenges, the Capitals are still making strides. And that's the pushback. But those are the things that need to get cleaned up a little bit. Some sloppy play, the fact that they got off to a slow start, those are things that need to be addressed. Now, what was it about the Buffalo Sabres? Well, we're up here. We're the Capitals. We're in first place in the Metro in the Eastern Conference. And who are these guys? The Buffalo Sabres? If history's any lesson, we know that the Capitals struggle against the Sabres. Not taking your opponent seriously, at least in part, I think that is what led to the Capitals' struggle. But taking a look at Lindgren, he has me a bit concerned. I'm going to be honest with you. And this has kind of just been going on for a bit here. I'm talking about him going all the way back to scoring on his own net. I'm talking about the game here recently on Saturday against the Rangers, where he shot it to the New York Rangers. And guess what? He shot it right in the back of the net. And then tonight, there was some rough play out there. Some of it was his fault, some of it not his fault. When his glove was off, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to try catching the puck with his bare hand. Some of it was kind of sloppy out there by Charlie. And I got to kind of wonder if some of this is, like I mentioned before, head games, that it is a contract year for both Chucky and LT. And it's still my opinion, regardless of what Friedman and all the big shots think, that only one of these guys is going to get an extension. It's going to make it real easy if one of these players slips. And Charlie Lindgren, I'm shining the spotlight straight on you. You need to clean it up a little bit. Lindgren ended the night with 22 saves on 25 shots, but still, the last few games have been a bit concerning for him with a record of 1-5 in his last 6 decisions. And I know what he meant for the Capitals last season. And I know that we've seen glimpses of greatness this season. The windmill save. I couldn't do that, but I'm also not an NHL player. But, it's taking a look at the good and the bad and what needs to get cleaned up, and consistency. It's the same blue line in front of him as it is in front of LT. That's the only line I can draw to this whole thing, is that it's a lot of head games, that he sees that Logan Thompson has really kind of taken over the net. And it's the perception that he's the backup now. For a while there, it was, well, there's no really starter. There's no backup. And at some point, Spencer Carberry is going to have to do the thing that he said that he wasn't going to do. And that is going to pick a de facto number 1. I know it's worked well for them going, it's going to be LT one game and Chucky the next game and back and forth and back and forth. But the inconsistency at this juncture of the season, it's not tenable. It's not a good thing for the Capitals right now, as they are on top of the Metro as I record this, but that could all change in a hurry if the Capitals went on a bit of a losing streak. They need to seize the moment and I think ultimately name the number 1 netminder. And it's clear to me that it is Logan Thompson. I'm not here to say that Lindgren's done, he's washed, anything like that, but there's winners, there's losers, and in this situation, it is most definitely Logan Thompson. Take a look at the back of his hockey card. Take a look at the back of Charlie Lindgren's. The proof is in the pudding. But after some missed chances from our side, particularly from Stroman Carlson, it ultimately led to the Sabres winning it thanks to a goal from J.J. Peterka. So you take a look at it in the shootout. It was a bit rough. The Capitals got off to a great start. Again, they could have really used Evgeny Kuznetsov in this situation. But it's a tough thing, as the Capitals are now 0-for-2 in the shootouts. That is definitely something that they're going to have to work on, in the future. I know there's not a lot. There's not a lot of weakness on this team. There are certain things that if you really kind of look at it, sometimes it's easy to get distracted by, just like someone shaking something shiny in front of you, that consistency, that we've seen great play, but the fact that the Capitals struggle against poor teams, the fact that, Charlie is not playing 100%, the fact that Spencer Carberry mentioned that before this line changeup that they had a hard time scoring goals. Those are all the things that need to get cleaned up. So good and bad in this game. Hopefully they can learn a few things before the next game. All right, so coming up here after the break, we're going to talk about the future. And the future is especially bright, most notably because Ryan Leonard, he was named the MVP at the World Junior Championships. Let's talk about it next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even your goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. So that's what I noticed as I went to Rocket Money and they said, "Hey, Dan, you are paying twice for the same streaming service. Why are you doing that?" I'm like, touche, Rocket Money. I want to save some money. I think I will cancel one of those subscriptions. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Ryan Leonard, wow, the excitement that surrounds the possibility of him joining the team maybe later this year or next season is quite exciting. Knocking it out of the park, as we know, Team USA back-to-back gold medal wins. And who was the MVP? None other than your favorite and my favorite, Ryan Leonard. And he was huge. And it's really exciting to think about the possibilities of what will be when he joins this team. How much better will the Capitals be when they make it to the playoffs if Ryan Leonard's like, hey, Boston College, they're out of it for whatever reason. I'm ready to join the Caps. That has me super excited. But let's talk about his standout performance. A little bit later, I will talk about head coach Spencer Carberry and his thoughts, but being named the MVP at the 2025 World Junior Championships, leading the team to second consecutive gold medal wins. What a performance at a guy that's only 19 years old in the final match against Team Finland. Putting up some good numbers, racking up 2 assists, finishing the tournament with an impressive 10 points, 5 goals, and 5 assists in just 7 games. We've seen this before from him. We've seen this in previous championships. We've seen this at Boston College. He is a baller. Competition within the organization. It was fun to watch parts of these World Junior Championships because there were a lot of Capitals prospects in there that really stood out. And in later episodes, I can't get to all of them in this episode, but another player was Cole Hudson as well. Interestingly, the only player who outscored Leonard was Cole Hudson, who ended the tournament with 11 points. Quite stunning for Cole Hudson. Another guy that's going to be a part of the future as well. That's some strong competition within the Capitals organization. Leonard becomes the 3rd player drafted by the Caps to take home the World Juniors MVP, joining the ranks of Evgeny Kuznetsov in 2012 and Philip Forsberg in 2014. So quite an illustrious history that the Capitals have there. And, you take a look at it, Leonard, who we know is that bright and shining star of the future, but also in that mix, Cole Hudson. It is quite a great time to be a Capitals fan, especially if you can kind of look a little bit past the horizon. But in case you missed it, some other big names have also won that award. Who might I be talking about? Maybe you've heard of some of those names. Maybe Marc-Andre Fleury, Patrice Bergeron, Connor Bedard, just off the top of my head here. And Leonard, his post-game thoughts, if you didn't see the video, he was, well, I'm going to go ahead and say it, very excited, visibly over the moon, saying, quote, "It doesn't really feel real. Honestly, there's no better feeling in the world," unquote. It's great to see the young talent on the big stage. So if there was any question about what kind of guy is Leonard and why did the Capitals draft him in the first place, go ahead and take a look at some of the highlights from the World Junior Championships. Quite stunning. So he also made to the tournament's media all-star team as one of the top 3 forwards and logged nearly 22 minutes of ice time in that intense final, contributing 7 shots on goal. But he's no stranger to all of this, as he's played in these kind of tournaments before, just when he was 18 years old, for example. He had success last season. He had it this season. He previously won as an 18-year-old and returned to Boston College for a sophomore season, focusing on capturing another championship. We know the story. That former GM Brian McClellan said he can join the team pretty much whenever he wants, but he chose to play his sophomore season at Boston College, and he wanted another crack at the international stage. Mission accomplished, Mr. Leonard. Now, it's worth noting that the Capitals head coach Spencer Carberry was keeping a close eye, well, as he is the head coach of the team, on both Leonard and Hudson during the final, expressing pride in how they raised their game in that thrilling 4-3 overtime win against Finland. Leonard's ability to rally the team back from a 3-1 deficit is what the Capitals are looking for. What have I talked about in this episode? That they're looking for the players that will help them overcome. And what did he do in that game? He showcased his leadership, his problem-solving skills in critical moments, and that's what has me excited about when he joins this team. I don't think that he's going to just make a small impact. I expect Ryan Leonard to make a big splash once he joins this team. Now, the big question is, well, we're kind of following the process of how does their season shake out? And the question is will he join the Capitals at the end of the season? It's interesting to take a look at. Leonard has already put up 19 points, 12 goals, and 7 assists in just 16 games at BC, while Hudson has put up 14 points, 4 goals, and 10 assists at Boston University. So some good numbers. And of course, Leonard is going to be the guy, I think, next season or the end of this season who is going to get a crack at that. In this segment, I'm talking about Leonard, but there's also Crystal. Like I talked about, there's Cole Hudson. There's a myriad of other prospects that were listed in these tournaments. Leon Mugli, these kind of players that their games really kind of took a step forward. And it's an exciting time, as it's a bit of a changing of the guard, as Alex Ovechkin has 1 year left under his contract. Picture this in your mind's eye: Alex Ovechkin, Ryan Leonard, and Andrew Crystal, along with all the other players on this team. This team could potentially be an absolute knockout next season, or potentially even at the end of this season. A lot to be excited about. But to wrap this up here, quite a tournament for in general, the Capitals, but a lot of players really took their games to the next level. More specifically in this segment, I'm talking about Hudson and Leonard, but Leonard getting quite an accomplishment, quite an accolade, being named the MVP of the gold medal winning Team USA. Quite an accomplishment. Let's hear it for Ryan Leonard, and let's feel that excitement that will be when he joins this team either later this season or next season. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.